It is Monday, February 3rd, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of CoinMetal. And it was a very educational, get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. Working a little bit of stuff from the butterfly guard today. And I had to tell you, I don't really like the butterfly guard as much as other guards. But it is a good position. It's not as restrictive as say being in full guard. Yeah, we were doing some stuff from the butterfly guard, and before we did that though, and I'm still nursing what I think is probably a pretty significant injury. I mean, at least as far as my jiu-jitsu experience is concerned, because I don't usually get injuries that pop, and when I have, I've usually had them for about 2 months or so, like that, you know. And there was definitely some popping involved here, so I expect it'll probably be a couple months before I'm not feeling it anymore, if ever, you know, that maybe it'll be one of those injuries that's just persistently with you always. Hopefully not. You know, I've been doing a lot to try and rehabilitate it. I'm mostly stretching after class, and I think that one's really important. That while you're still nice and warmed up, because you're not really going to get as warm as you are at that point by doing anything outside of class. There's not usually anything I'm doing that gets my heart rate up there as high as rolling with somebody does. And so, yeah, like I said, I find it's really positive to try and stretch at those times, because that's really when your muscles are the most elastic. You know, is when they're nice and warmed up and full of blood. But yeah, so we were working from the butterfly, and of course, when we were doing the warm-up roll, I was against one of the founding members of the gym, and so my rolling was full of chokes and arm bars and all that business. Although I did manage to avoid one or two things, but honestly, I was a little confused to begin with, because I could have swore the instructor said flow roll at first, but then when he repeated himself, he said just warm up roll. And so, you know, I didn't know whether I was flow rolling with him or warm up rolling with him. Either way, I knew I was pretty much toast anyway, so it's kind of a foregone conclusion there, you know, that the best I could try and do is survive as long as I possibly could, and or just navigate without getting choked too much. And so yeah, I failed at that. got choked plenty. But you know, hey, I'm not keeping track like that. You know, it's one of those things that you go through, you know. I mean, it's going to happen. You're going to get choked, you know. I mean, it's jiu-jitsu, so what do you expect, right? But nonetheless, I did try and keep on top of it and try not to get choked too much. But I think he got me like 3, maybe 4 times. And honestly, I was really just trying to take it easy because of my hip. But at the same time, I was trying to make it worth his while. So I did flex now and then to try and get out of it, and when he was especially, how should I say it, when he was especially like pushing me towards it, I would resist it, and I did manage to get all the way back out of an armbar that way, and but I ended up in his guard, but nonetheless, it was better than an armbar position, right? But yeah, I was kind of confused as to where to go with it, only because, you know, I didn't want to exert myself too hard, and again, for a few moments there, I didn't even know whether we were flow rolling or regular rolling, so, but nonetheless, all in all, I think it was a positive class, but I gotta tell you, man, this injury, it's like, it's in one of those spots where if you flop over on your hip, you hit it. You know, if you stretch the leg out too far, you hit it. If if I do a cartwheel and my legs are up in the air, I'm feeling it then. And I mean, so when it came to cartwheels, I did like 1, maybe 2, and I was just like, okay, that hurts too much when I land. So can kind of sit that one out for right now. But yeah, there just several impact things in class, just kept bumping it, and it's like, man, I'd really like to be able to forget about this and just concentrate on what's being taught in class, but I'm constantly being reminded of this fucking thing. So like I said, I'm looking forward to the time when I'm not injured, and until then, I'm just trying not to injure myself any worse. But, it makes it kind of difficult to try and retain anything from class. And, because I'll be honest, I'm like two steps above in shock, basically. It's like if I bump it too many times, I start getting cold sweats and whatnot, and it just doesn't feel good. But anyway, all in all, like I said, it was a good class. I managed to avoid injuring myself any worse. And, feel like I learned something for the day. I don't think I tapped anybody. And I think the only person who tapped me was Coach, or the instructor. So yeah, that was my jiu-jitsu experience all in all. Just basically, a little bit of like butterfly guard that I can remember, and then pain, and then more butterfly guard, and then pain. So my apologies if I'm not getting the most in-depth report to you as far as my jiu-jitsu experience today, but like I said, it's something that should improve over time. At least I hope it does, because I'm getting sick of it already. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music, and of course we're going to go with Body Count. But I want to drift away a little bit from Bloodlust, just to do it, kind of spice it up for the day, and so here it is. Institutionalized 2014, First Dance, here on CoinMetal. And that was Metallica with Welcome Home Sanitarium. And so, as far as what we're going to get into today, I got this thing on Bitcoin.com, and some of those of you who are familiar with the Silk Road are probably well aware of how DPRK was more or less just thrown in a jail cell for nothing. I mean, all he did was facilitate 21st century business. That's it, commerce. But due to the legal nature of the articles being sold and bought and sold on his site, that drew him afoul of some entities. And so I got this article here. Silk Road Mentor's Arrest Rekindles Tales of Rogue Agents and Pirates' Treasure. And this is authored by Jamie Redman. And I'm going to assume that Jamie is a man, but we can find out. Yes! Penis. So let's get into this thing. If I can find it. There we go. On January 30th, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, SDNY, revealed that Roger Clark, the alleged senior advisor to the Silk Road Marketplace, pled guilty to conspiring to distribute massive quantities of narcotics. Clark, otherwise known as Variety Jones, was a unique character within the Silk Road saga, who claimed a rogue member of the FBI was on the run, extorting him and other darknet market admins and vendors. SDNY has announced that Roger Clark, who was also known as plural of Mongoose or Variety Jones, pled guilty on Thursday for conspiring to distribute illicit narcotics in mass quantities. The law enforcement press release notes that Clark was the senior advisor to the owner and operator of the Silk Road Marketplace. According to court filings, Clark also used the online nickname Captain Sergeant, or plural of Mongoose, VJ, and Simon during his tenure with the Darknet Market, DNM. Clark is described as the real mentor who advised the Silk Road leader, Dread Pirate Roberts, DPR, about, quote, security vulnerabilities in the Silk Road site, technical infrastructure, and the rules that govern Silk Road users and vendors. SDNY disclosed that they believe Clark also assisted with hiring programmers in order to improve the overall infrastructure of the DNM. Additionally, the agency detailed that Clark gathered intelligence on law enforcement's efforts to investigate the Silk Road. Before Clark pled guilty and was arrested, and even before he was extradited to the United States from Thailand, Variety Jones and his other aliases were well-known pseudonyms online. When Clark played the role of Variety Jones, he allegedly found security vulnerabilities with the Silk Road's platform and told DPR about the issues. Allegedly, Clark also rewrote the SR website and changed the look of the marketplace entirely. Reports say that there are more than 1,400 pages of chat logs between DPR and Variety Jones, which is 4 times the number of chats DPR had with other senior SR admins. Before the Silk Road was seized by law enforcement, Variety Jones changed his online pseudonym to Simon. The 56-year-old Clark faces 20 years in prison for his charges, and he is scheduled to be sentenced by an SDNY judge on May 29, 2020. A rogue federal agent and the Darknet's pirate treasure. Prior to Clark's arrest in September of 2015, the alleged Silk Road senior advisor wrote the public from Thailand using the moniker plural of mongoose. The post was found in a DNM forum called Ganja Forums, and Clark explained he was on the run from global law enforcement. After the Silk Road site was seized, Clark found himself on, quote, a nice secluded beach area in Thailand and wound up drinking heavily and living within the solitude of the beach confines. In April, roughly around the Thai New Year, Clark got a message from an FBI agent who called himself Chrysippus or Diamond. Clark said that Diamond knew that he was on the run, and the agent had a swath of information in regard to the current status of a few specific DNMs. The former Silk Road senior advisor stressed that Diamond told him about the fall of Atlantis prior to the website's demise. According to Clark, the FBI agent was also well connected with the 2 rogue agents Karl Mark Force and Sean Bridges. Diamond called the agents out for how, quote, stupid they were to do anything but hold onto their ill-gotten gains. Clark's Ganja Forums post explained, Diamond believed that DPR had a Bitcoin wallet that held 300,000 Bitcoin, and he thought Clark could extract information on how to obtain the wallet. He promised Clark he would keep him safe and free from authorities if he helped, and he told Clark eventually he planned to retire as a federal officer in a tax-friendly jurisdiction. Silk Road investigation shows prominent double agent manipulation and poor ethics by law enforcement. Diamond also informed Clark that he was extorting existing DNM admins and vendors, and he acquired $4 million from his, quote, extracurricular activities. After these chats, Clark noticed the fall of the DNM evolution, and he found out law enforcement officials were searching Thailand for his whereabouts. Clark believed Diamond set him up, and Thai police had told him he had a bounty on his head for 20,000 Thai bahts. Over a bottle of Sangsum, he left the police with 50,000 bahts and informed Diamond that his trap had failed. After the post was published in 2015, Clark wasn't heard from again for quite some time, and he was eventually arrested in Thailand. Police filings state that Clark was an SR admin between January 2011 through October 2013, and he fled just before Silk Road was seized. U.S. officials thanked the Royal Thai Police for their support and assistance with apprehending Clark. If the story Clark told in 2015 holds weight, that it's possible that other rogue law enforcement officials, besides Force Bridges, are still at liberty. During an interview with CNBC, Catherine Hahn, a former prosecutor for the Attorney General's office, explained how the Silk Road investigation was riddled with patterns of bad behavior and double agents. The interview highlights how the majority of the Silk Road investigation evidence was based on the shameful ethics of rogue law enforcement officials. Circumstantial evidence shows Clark's tale of a perfidious agent extorting darknet markets is likely true. According to Clark's story, Diamond was planning to extort Agora admins too, but the marketplace owners caught on and silently shut the market down. Over the last year and a half, DNM markets and associated forums like Dread have been attacked regularly by distributed denial of service attacks. Throughout 2019 and 2020, there have been at least 3 major DNM exit scams since the start of the heavy DDoS assaults against these markets. Moreover, since 2017, 3 of the largest DNMs created after Silk Road, Alpha Bay, Hansa, and Dream Market, are gone now as well. What do you think about Roger Clark pleading guilty to conspiring to distribute massive quantities of narcotics? What do you think about Clark's tale he told in 2015 of rogue agents? Personally, I think that, it's fucked up. Let's see here. This is a bad idea. Says, I suggest you stop publicizing these topics, and I think you should just go fuck yourself, dude. Blair Bowden says, this story is propaganda to keep Bitcoin and all crypto a bad rap. Yeah, fuck you. No, it isn't. Pulling fiat money into private transactions has created a problem to keep things decentralized with anonymity. This story is about a total lack of trust in law enforcement, as well as organized crime. Totally worthless information on the current market or short-long positions. Nothing but clickbait story. Yeah, you're wrong, Blair. I think that the Silk Road demonstrates to us what is possible with cryptocurrencies, i.e. markets that do not have government entities telling you what to buy, what to sell, how to do it, how much of it to do. I mean, these aren't really their calls to make. These are things that you need to decide for yourself. And I think that there are some people that are used to the control of being able to make those decisions for you, and they don't like losing that control. And, the fact of the matter is they never really had it. They just had excuses to exert that control over you in the event that they happen to catch you doing something that they don't like. It doesn't have anything to do with, what is moral or ethical or even in good taste. It's mostly about competition control and, cutting back on the people that are taking a little bit of cut of the market. There's people that they've controlled segments of the economy and they like that control and they want to keep that control. What they don't understand is what their control has brought to the market and exactly how ephemeral that control really is. And I think that as time goes on, people are going to become more and more aware of how much control they actually have and will be taking responsibility of that control. And what that's going to mean for the marketplace at large, I don't know, but it's going to be a hell of a lot different than it is now. That's about as specific as I can be. Because, the monetary base changing also changes the value base of the money, the moral base of the money, the ethical base of the money. Because we're talking about having different issuers. And of course, they have different priorities in mind than the ones we're dealing with that we really had no choice to deal with. Anyway. Let's see here. I'm looking at this series of stuff. It's on myplanetganja.com, and it's just this big-ass thread. I'm not exactly sure what the point of this one was, but it does show plural of mongoose. And let's see. Munchie wrote, I'm sure his internet went down, the power went out, or maybe his scanner broke. The poor guy's like a walking EMP. Let's see here. That's weird. In plural of mongoose, I offer my opponent. Somebody said to him, I guess, I offer my opponents a bargain. If they will stop telling lies about me, I will stop telling the truth about them. And that was by Adlai Stevenson. Okay, and then plural of mongoose replies, okay then, I've had some fun retelling some adventures from years ago, but I'm afraid that part of this has come to a close. Maybe I'll come back later and finish them, if I have time before I'm incarcerated. Now it's time to explain what's been going on for the last 2 years, which hopefully will answer some of the questions that you may have. Unlike the previous posts here, I'm not going out of my way to be witty, funny, or entertaining. There will be no poetic license. No facts shaded by presentation because it reads better. Okay, maybe just a little teeny bitty bit. Sometimes I can't help myself. Just the facts, Jack. TLDR, right up front here so you know if you want to keep reading or not. This is the story of what I've been doing for the last 2 years. The story of $75 million of pirates' treasure in bitcoins. The story of a rogue, highly placed member of the Federal Bureau of Investigation who has been making better than average of $1 million a month, committing felonies with wild abandon just because he can. The story of a bent federale who has leaked me secret grand jury information in an effort to keep me out of the hands of his colleagues. The story of an assistant United States attorney for the District Court of New York, or the Southern District of New York, in spite of being made aware of much of this, has chosen to do nothing, likely so as to not embarrass his office and politically minded boss. That hasn't even got me started on the kidnapping and torture plot. Don't worry, I'll get to it. But it's nasty. Spoiler alert, there are no innocent people named in this tale, myself included. Maybe a life lesson or two, maybe not. So let's wind our calendars back a couple of years to the beginning of October 2013. I was on a long-haul flight on Air China on my way to, of all places, China. After a brief stop there rushing through the hellhole that is the Taipei airport, I then flew, also on Air China, to Suvarnabhumi Airport in Bangkok, arriving tired as shit in the early in the morning of October 4th local time. After way too many hours in airports and flying, there is no Wi-Fi/internet on Air China, even in business class, so I had no idea what was going on in the outside world, so to speak, for at least a couple of days. Upon arrival, I took a cab to my hotel and was relaxing in my suite just watching the television when the news of the fall of the Silk Road website came on. Well, golly, you could have knocked me down with a feather. I unpacked my things, took a shower to wash the airline off, and took a well-deserved nap. Waking in the late afternoon, I went out to hot bars along the soy at Pat Pong 2 and get stinking drunk. Not because of the news, mind you. That's what I always did when I got to BKK, got stinking drunk. You'll find that a common theme over the next year, I'm nothing if not a creature of habit. Now this is the part where everyone wants to know how I went on the run, etc. How did I manage to evade what everyone assumes was the closing grasp and wrath of the United States Department of Justice? Well, I went back to the hotel, got some sleep, and went out and did the same thing again the next day. And the next. Yes, this is how I apparently go on the run. Pitiful, I know. Well, I went back to the hotel, got some sleep, and went out to did the same thing again, and the next. Yeah, okay, I got that part. I had long since had a flight booked to take me to Phuket for a visit, and then Samui for a month or so. Eventually, I flew back through BKK to Trat. After the usual harrowing Songthiao ride to the ferry, I ended up on the island that had been my home for close to a year and a half. I continued to live on the same place on the beach as I had since I had arrived in Thailand. Over the next 6 months, just ripping through my passport really quick, like here, and checking visas and stamps and dates, I left the country 3 or 4 times, both by air and land border crossings, each time returning to my same little place on the beach. This is the life on the run. If anyone truly wanted to find me, it would have taken about 90 minutes. In April, Songkran, the Thai New Year, was coming up. I'd also recalled from the previous year that also meant 5 months of waves up to my front door, no beach, and having everything I owned being wet for 5 months. My love affair with beachfront living was over. I moved inland to a nice place in the jungle. No waves. God damn it. Those cicadas are loud, though. If you dropped onto the island and hit any of the all of the bars, it would have taken about 2 bars to find someone that knew me, who I was, and where I lived. I mention this because at some point in time, I'm going to be accused of being a fugitive, on the run, furtively trying to hide my location and identity. Nothing could have been further from the truth. And then a funny thing happened. Way up in the jungle, with shitty cellular reception, and as a result, even shittier internet access, a new contact popped up on my chat. It was a person whom I would eventually refer to as a highly placed FBI tergiversator, whatever the fuck that means, in an email to Mr. Saren Turner, Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. For now, showing a complete lack of imagination, I labeled this contact Bob. Quote, I often get shit for using a big word when a more diminutive one would suffice. However, in this case, to badly paraphrase Humpty Dumpty, when I use a word, it means exactly what it is defined to mean, neither more nor less. A tergiversator is someone who turns renegade, who uses evasions, subterfuge, and the trust of those around him to betray the cause to which he has sworn. Yep, cannot think of a word that better describes the individual known to me as Bob. Now, I didn't have the name for this contact, but as we had various conversations, the subject of vanity names for hidden services came up. He liked the name Chrysippus, or Chrysippus of Soli, a Greek Stoic philosopher. Hey, I'm named after a Viverede. Who am I to throw stones? He must have either hired someone or put some hardware to work, because eventually he dropped his old random 16 alphanumeric torch hat ID and started to use Zen Crucifix 47E. The name was, quote, very important to him, and he'd get pissed when I wouldn't use it, and continued to just call him Bob. Until he finally got so pissed off, I relented and started to refer to him as Crucifix. Dude had issues, and the name was, quote, real important to him. Over time, it came out that he was a highly placed member of the FBI. Yeah, I know. He said it on the internet, so it must be true, right? It wasn't like that at all. Without going through the whole process, let's just say he more than convinced me. As we go along here, you'll be convinced too. So suspend your disbelief for a while and read on. It started out with things like Atlantis. He had, for a pricely sum, kept the management of Atlantis updated with documents that eventually led to them shutting down the site, fearing the feds nipping at their heels. Now, there's been rumors about that for a long time, and anyone could claim that after the fact. Sure, but this was just the beginning of him laying out his bona fides, and eventually he'd get around to telling me about things before they happened. But the thing is, he had a Bitcoin wallet, and a Bitcoin wallet well over 300,000 Bitcoin in it, worth about $75 million at current pricing. This wallet, it was unfortunately encrypted, which is why he was spending all his time wooing me. How it exactly came into his position was never made clear, just that it came from, quote, Silk Road. Whether it was from a laptop or memory stick, the server that was imaged originally, or any of the dozens of tertiary servers that the site made use of, was never clear. What was made clear was that nobody else knew that it existed, except of course for me now, and DPR of course, whose treasure it was he had looted. Wasn't there a record of where he had taken it from? Nope. He was a pro and covered his tracks. Let me say here, Crucifix is wicked fucking smart, a fucking computer genius, a razor-sharp mind, and an unbelievable eye for detail and minutia. I hadn't heard anything about an encrypted wallet with 300k in it, and it was starting to seem plausible that he had in fact managed to gain possession of it without leaving any trace of its existence. And Crispus had a plan, a long-term, well-thought-out plan, to get access to what was, in his mind now, his $75 million. Did I mention he was patient as all get out too? The odds were he and others involved in the investigation and prosecution of Ross Ulbricht figured that he was going to be sentenced to between 40 years and life. Nobody thought it would possibly be any less than that, and, as I said, Chrysippus is nothing if not patient. His plan, while long-term, was also pretty damn simple. He was going to patiently wait for Ross to be convicted, and after he was convicted, he would eventually be transferred to a permanent home in a federal prison. Once there, it takes a while to go through intake, move to a temporary wing while being assessed, and it could take 6 months or more at the prison before he would be placed in what would become his permanent home. Once Ross was permanently housed, Sisyphus was going to work on getting people inside the facility, convicts and employees alike, to arrange it so he could communicate with Ross. This isn't nearly as hard as it sounds. When I was in the max security Wandsworth prison at the pleasure of the Queen, one of my cellies had a brand new iPhone 4, and because I was teaching him to grow, I got to make use of it on a regular basis. Now this is where I come in. He figured, for whatever far-flung reason, that I could convince Ross to cough up the passphrase he needed. He also had a second theory, and that was that Ross only had half the passphrase, and I had the other half. Either way, I am critical to his plan. Timeline-wise, we're at about this time last year, mid-September 2014. He wants me to move to Singapore, where he can set up a safe house and know that I'm clear of the clutches of the DOJ. I tell him he's on fucking crack. I'm not going anywhere under his control. The guy is getting pissed at me for not towing the line he is laying out. It's mostly entertainment for me. I have no interest in the millions he's offering me to assist in his plan, and it's also pretty obvious to me that if I did help, he wouldn't need me around after its completion. He continues to build up his bona fides for me. He claims that his machinations have kept anyone from finding me so far. Now, he doesn't know where I am, but that's not because I'm hard to find. It's like him saying he's got a rock that protects me from lions. I don't see any lions around, do you? And taking credit for my lion-free existence. Plus, I like lions. So he feeds me other tidbits, some minor that pan out right away, others major that didn't come out for months and months. In late October, this was before Halloween. I know this because I racked my motorbike into a tree on Halloween, so that date sticks in my mind. He drops a couple of bombshells on me. First one, Bob is a Fed. Yeah. That's no fucking surprise. What's the point? Sisyphus then details for me the antics of the United States Drug Enforcement Agency agent Carl Mark Force IV and United States Secret Service agent Sean Bridges, and the current state of the grand jury investigation into them. Okay, I was a little bit gobsmacked. He gave me lots of details, and I gotta say, I was impressed. This is one of those things that, when it became public, would pretty much seal Chrysippus as a source of accurate information, not available to many, and his claims of being highly placed in the FBI would deserve serious merit. He also stresses how stupid they were to do anything but just fucking hold on to their ill-gotten gains. He proudly informed me that he had earnings of over $4 million from his extracurricular activities in the last few months alone. His long-term plans consisted of hoarding his ill-gotten gains. When he had a few $100 million, that was his goal, he'd quietly retire to a tax-friendly jurisdiction and live the life he deserved. Meanwhile, there were so many opportunities for him. You see, our friend Chrysippus had fancied himself of something of an Omar Little character, stealing and extorting from those who couldn't turn to the authorities. He was working on either worming or hacking his way into all of the major markets. He was running his own little private operations on major D&M dealers and in general cleaning up in this new Wild West. His credibility lagged for quite a while as the news of Force and Bridges failed to break. I don't know for sure, but from what I gather, Drattel wasn't even made aware of the grand jury investigation until November, well after I'd got in the news. When the Albrecht Court case came along and still nothing, I teased him unmercifully. He was fucking livid, and it showed through his messages to me. Now understand that we aren't chatting in real time for the most part. I run a modified program that is compatible with TorChat. It doesn't, however, log. It's also not Ricochet. I said compatible with TorChat, eh? We'd both leave our chat clients running pretty much 24/7, allowing for bad cellular service, thunderstorms, coups, drunks hitting the main power lines for the island, etc. So I'd often log onto my computer and receive a delayed message or three from him. and sometimes they were rants, assuring me that fucking Force and fucking Bridges were going to be arrested any fucking day. I'd see. Other times, they were bits of information that I could follow up on over the next few weeks to see if he, in fact, did have information that only someone in his position could have. And one day, he did something weird. I mean weird, even for him. He signed off one of his rants with CWT. Just like that. Normally it was Chrysippus or nothing. So I waited until we were chatting one time in real time and sprung that one on him. What's with the CWT? Now, you can tell when someone is flustered, even in text. The cadence of the responses change. They pontificate on off-topic themes when they think or try to move the conversation to another topic. I kept bringing it back around. Finally, he says that it stands for carat, as in the unit for measuring the weight of diamonds. His code name is, in fact, he tells me, Diamond. From that day on, he uses Diamond, dropping the Chrysippus he was so proud of completely. He retained the Zen Chrysippus 47E torch out Addy even to this day. So there we have it. Case solved. I don't think so, Chrysippus CWT Diamond. When he is finally uncovered, and damn it, I was close for a while there, I am sure that at least 2 and possibly all 3 of those taglines are going to become crystal clear. We'll see. Many months later, when Force and Bridges' fiasco finally broke, he was fucking ecstatic. See? Did I see now? Did I? He was insufferably smug. He kept wanting me to follow this link or that link or read this article. Now, it may surprise you to know that I had zero interest in following all of the DNM crap that's been going on in the last 2 years. Finally, I relented and allowed him to send me a few snippets of articles and court filings and whatnot that confirmed the details of what he had been telling me. Later, I did a bit of digging around on my own and discovered that, for all his hubris, Diamond had managed to leave out one of the Force's major fuck-ups. Or one of Force's major fuck-ups. One day, using a fucking work computer, I believe, Force sent a message to Dread Pirate Roberts and signed off on it. Carl. Little bells went off in my head. I could see Diamond as Chrysippus doing the same exact thing when he was all excited and pissed off that I wasn't taking him seriously. No doubt in my mind now. Chrysippus was going to figure in who Diamond was, and so will CWT. Diamond, I think, was just a quick response to the situation. He had insisted on using it exclusively now. Food for thought for sure. Now over the next 6 months, past the trial into March 2015, Diamond kept insisting that it was him keeping me safe. He also started to get nastier and nastier because I refused to cooperate in his planning to obtain the keys to the encrypted wallet. I became inured to his regular threats, but I know he was serious. If I ever fucked up and fell into the hands of the feds, he had the reach and knew the people, and most importantly had the funds to have me killed. If I fucked up in Southeast Asia, whatever country, he'd reach out and he'd have me killed. Basically, if I didn't do exactly what he wanted or ended up in the custody of any authority, he'd have me killed. During that time, I was in and out of Thailand a few times with no difficulties whatsoever. In December, I obtained a retirement visa, which meant I didn't have to roll over any 60-day tourist visas. Oh, there we go. Which required leaving the country, going to an embassy, and taking a couple of days to get another 60-day visa. The visa runs in the news. They are cracking down in Thailand, are walkover/walk back. get 15 or get a 15 or 30 day stamp kind of things, which are kind of dodgy, and I obeyed the spirit and letter of the law. In March 2015, I checked in with immigration and confirmed my address, something you have to do every 90 days on a retirement visa. No problems with the authorities at all. In March, Diamond stepped it up a notch. At the beginning of the month, he gave me 30 days to go to a location of his choosing, stay there until his plan was complete, At that time, that meant a long time. His plan was, and still is, I believe, I'll ask him as soon as I post this and send him a link to make his move to contact Ross between Christmas and New Year's. He feels that is when Ross would be most vulnerable. He's probably right. On March 7th, Diamond was once again fucking ecstatic. He was working on ripping off all the DNMs and was often bragging about his skills and abilities. He was in the process of making an over $6 million score in Bitcoin. He'd managed to get into one of the DNMs, root the server, and sat in the bush waiting to get an IP from an admin. He'd been successful in that a few weeks earlier, and had bribed/hired some folks to find the location of said admin. He demanded $6 million, lots of jabs about him being the $6 million man. Dude has a fucking ego, man. Which they didn't have sitting around, unless they raped the market for it. But he had them by the fucking short hairs, man. That was a done deal, and I'd heard it from him first. Suck that, eh? 10 days later, Evolution Market was no more. Yeah, his bona fides were racking up, and I was, for the first time, really worried that this fucker was going to try and force me to do his bidding, or kill me. Or more accurately, force me to do his bidding and then kill me. Either way, not good. I made plans to relocate to another country for the usual reasons. So I didn't end up dead. Meanwhile, in March, I started hearing about 4 men moving about the island asking about me. These weren't locals. They were Farang, rude white men, 2 Russians and 2 Americans. I doubt they worked for the DOJ. Diamond was getting serious, and I was keeping my head low. In early April, Diamond informed me that there was an Interpol red notice for me, and that officials in Southeast Asia had been requested to detain me. He insisted I was going to be rounded up any day now, and the only safe place was with him. Coincidentally, he had a team in Thailand right now who could help me. Oh joy! Now, I had a pretty damn good relationship with the figures of authority on the island, to put it mildly. It was time to dust off those relationships and see what's going on. I jumped on a borrowed motorcycle. Don't ask about mine, the story still pains me. And cruised down to the bar, just down from one of the police boxes on the island. Little local stations consisting of about 200 square feet buildings with tables and chairs outside, casual little places, where the locals go to interact with the local police. I wander over to the police box and nod at a uniform I know. He wanders over, and I ask him, "Are you guys looking for me?" "No, we're not, but immigration is, I think." "Yeah, here's the paper." He shows it to me, and sure enough, there's a really shitty copy of one of my visa pictures on there. Well, fuck. In the interests of community support, I invite the fine gentleman back to the bar for a drink, and maybe he could find out what the immigration police wanted. Sure, he'd love to, so off to the bar we went. He made a phone call, and about 15 minutes later, a pickup truck with a couple of immigration police showed up. They sat down, and we ordered a bottle of Sangsum Thai whiskey and a bucket of ice. This was a serious conversation we were having, and called for serious drink. Yes, they were looking for me, They even had little flyers in tie with my picture and offering a reward. Did I want them to go back to the office and get one? No thanks. I've already seen one. Thank you very much anyways. We ordered another bottle of Sing Sum. That first one went fast. How much was the reward, I asked. 20,000 Thai baht, I was told. If the long arm of the US DOJ was really behind this, they were going all out. $700 or so. Wow. I left a bundle of 50,000 THB on the table to cover the tab and said goodbye to the smiling officials divvying up the loot and headed home. Yep, it was definitely time to move on. You know, before the police or immigration folks found me. I soon informed Diamond that I'm afraid his Russian/American tag teams had missed me. I was gone, out of the country, and how was his week going? Well, you'd think I'd kicked his puppy. He went fucking mental and started going on about his backup plan. He would kidnap Ross Ulbricht's sister or mother, or ideally both, get a video-capable phone in front of Ross Ulbricht, and he'd give up that fucking passphrase, and Diamond would have them tortured until he did. I had his bona fides by now, and knew him well enough to know that he was serious about this. Come Christmas, if I wasn't well in position exactly where he wanted me to be, I'd be responsible for the results. So I still had some time, but really, what the fuck could I do? Oh, he was bragging about how he did this, about how he did that, and left me a bit or two to work with. I've amassed thousands of hours on and messages from technical IRC channels that may be discussing issues he'd be working on / needing to know, and well over 10,000 emails of technical lists relating to the problem at hand. Did I think I could find him and stop him? Eventually, yes. But now he was getting serious about this kidnapping thing, and it was time to bite the bullet. In this case, biting the bullet was turning myself in, because writing an anonymous postcard wasn't going to cut it. If I was going to keep him from kidnapping those two women, which he'd do if I didn't turn myself over to him, I was going to have to turn myself over to the DOJ folks, so they can take the appropriate action to protect those people, and maybe even figure out just who this sick fuck was and stop him. Easiest thing in the world, turning yourself in, you'd think. You'd also be wrong. Let's see here, it gives a whole bunch of information. Subject, indictment, and extradition from Scott Hoffman. On May 9th, 2015, Sharon Turner, U.S. State Attorney, blah, blah, blah. Email, blah, 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 blah. A highly placed FBI tergiversator who goes by the alias Diamond informed me, redacted. As Diamond appears to have access to FBI intelligence at a high level, please govern dissemination of this and future communications accordingly, redacted. Sincerely, Mr. Clark. Now, I know that's not exactly the most informative snippet from an email, but bear with me. And yeah, I used the word tergiversator. I'm sure Mr. Turner got one of the older children or an adult to help him use the dictionary to determine its meaning. So it's all good. The contents of the email informed Mr. Turner that secret grand jury information and the existence of a sealed indictment had been passed on to me by Diamond. I also touched on the fact that I was aware the authorities in Southeast Asia had been requested to detain me for extradition. That's the immigration police job in Thailand, by the way. I offered to cooperate with the service of the indictment on me, to wit, turn myself in. Releasing secret grand jury information or even the existence of a sealed indictment is, I understand, a felony. Now revealing the existence of my own sealed indictment likely wouldn't be prosecutable. However, the information from that grand jury likely would be. So, That's why that shit is redacted up there. Oh, and also, instructions on how to contact me and a private PGP key, so you know, we can keep it all private and secure. Okay then, let's see how that goes. Crickets. I know it was opened and read. Crickets. I redoubled my efforts to track down Diamond. He was going to be going after the big markets, hell, the small markets too, as well as the major dealers. I don't have near his assets or available personnel, so I cross the dealers and small markets off my list and concentrate on the large markets. He's going to try to get inside them. I'm going to try to get inside them first and catch him. Oh, this is going to be fun, eh? Now I'm no Uber hacker or even a poor coder. I do have a good mind for how things work, and I can follow a flow chart. However, I have problems figuring out how to do a drop shadow in .css, and to me the ultimate HTML tag is the blink tag. I have a good eye for spotting weaknesses, and I'm not too shabby at social engineering. Jack of all trades, master of none. Meanwhile, I furiously mended fences with Diamond. I wasn't taking him serious in the beginning, and even once I realized he was who he said, and he was amassing millions of dollars in ill-gotten gains, it wasn't until he started obsessing on the kidnappings that I realized I had a fucking lunatic on my hands. A lunatic highly placed in the FBI with a massive off-the-books private budget, who thought that kidnapping and torture were the solution to his problems, and he started to give me a few other screws loose. And he started to get a few other screws loose as well. I do know how to pick my enemies, eh? So, towards the end of May, I convinced Diamond that I would in fact go along with his plan. I concentrated on the I convinced Ross to give me the passphrase version, but he is still going to plan the kidnappings. He wants me where I'll be safe, and we finally work out a compromise. I convince him that me sitting in a room for 6 months waiting for this to go down is ridiculous. I said that in 6 months, at the end of November, I'd go where he wanted, and we'd finish planning the operation. I also negotiated my cut from 10% to a flat $15 million. The tiny fact that he agreed without much argument made it obvious I was never going to collect, or perhaps wasn't even going to remain breathing. I gave myself 4 months to see if I could uncover him. If not, I'd have to come up with something else. I spent the next 4 months, 16 hours a day, trying to track that fucker down. I also decided to take another shot at Mr. Saren Turner, Assistant United States Attorney for Southern District of New York. Shit, that whole DNM thing was their bailiwick, and I'll give it one more try. Let's see here. Mr. Turner, I am disappointed. It has been over 2 weeks and I have yet to receive a response to my previous email to you. I am loath to communicate details concerning the rogue FBI character Diamond over insecure, unencrypted email, as it has been made clear to me that my life would be in danger if I had any dealings with the U.S. justice system in any form. Diamond is previously shown to have inside knowledge that would only have been available to someone with insider knowledge. On or about October 30th, 2014, I was informed that Knob/Force, along with another player, had abused their positions to steal over $1.5 million US. That later proved to be accurate. On or about the March 7th, 2015, I was informed that a major darknet market would be closing within the next 2 weeks as a result of the successful extortion of over $6 million from the operators of the site by Diamond. Less than 2 weeks later, Evolution Market was gone. Diamond claims that the total earnings from extorting similar sites is in excess of $10 million. Naturally, I have been unable to determine whether or not Diamond's claim that there is a sealed indictment for me is accurate. I have been able to confirm that Cambodian and Thai border agents / immigration police have my picture and information, along with orders to detain me if I attempt a crossing or exit. There is also a cash incentive reward for information leading to my location and apprehension. The scheme which Diamond is attempting to involve me in will yield an order of magnitude more return than the Evolution extortion, some $70 million in total. Under the circumstances, I'm very concerned about falling into the clutches of Diamond, or subjecting myself to the custody of the U.S. justice system, or considering the money involved. I would be in fear for my life. I contact you as it is obvious that Diamond has information that is closely related to investigations that your office is involved in. It occurs to me that your office may in fact believe that you are au fait with the situation vis-a-vis Diamond, inasmuch as this may all be the result of a sanctioned investigative process. If that is the case, may I suggest that it has run off the rails quite some time ago. I intend to uncover the identity of Diamond. I have a pretty good idea of how to go about that, and if you or your office are unable or unwilling to assist, perhaps you can pass my information on to someone who can. Sincerely, Mr. Clark. Oh, and the public key I supplied Mr. Turner and signed with emails with blah blah blah, big ass PGP key. Crickets. Once again, I know the email was read. Crickets. I had 4 months until my self-imposed deadline. If I couldn't find him and stop him by the 26th of September, I was going to have to come up with a plan B. This right here, what you're reading, is pretty much my plan B. I know, weak sauce. I'm kind of disappointed in it myself. However, I'm thinking this is going to be a wee bit harder to ignore than an email. Now, I wasn't idle over the last 4 months. Diamond was honing in on his next target, and it was going to be Agora. I stared at Agora until my eyes bled, until I saw a chink. A teensy tiny little opportunity, and one that I could use to my advantage. With the right timing, I could use that advantage to snare Diamond, and I spent a long time honing my fucking plan with him as a target. And Agora announces they're shutting down, thank you very much, and thanks for playing. Please tip your waitress on the way out. I was and still am crushed. It was a damn good plan, and its usefulness disappeared with Agora. I spent the next few weeks cadging Diamond for clues as to what he was up to next. But he's all curled up into himself, pissed at missing taking down Agora and all the Bitcoin that would have brought him. He's back talking about nothing but kidnapping again. Well, fuck. Oh, I've started down a few roads with a few ideas, but honestly, there's now no way I can possibly do anything in time to stop the corrupt fucker. Someone has to make sure he doesn't succeed in kidnapping Ross's sister and or mother, and it would be kind of swell of them to make sure Ross doesn't come to any harm at the hands of one of Diamond's agents as well. Diamond, suck it. You're not getting the $75 million. Also, I'm not done with you yet. And you know what? We are going to pause right there. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll right to... Well, actually, you know what? We're almost done. This was pretty long, but continuing on, because it's almost over. If you want to talk to Diamond, I see him online right this very fucking minute. The instructions to fire up a workable version of TorChat that will talk to his old one are in one of the previous posts. Drop in and say hi to him. Don't be surprised if he's in a bit of a bad mood. he's just going to be discovering he's been brought out into the sunlight. And back several pages of this thread, the question was how I have managed to stay out of jail. The answer is simple. The folks who should have been trying to put me in jail didn't want me in jail. Likely still don't. But let's see where this goes from here, okay? Plus, the locals aren't too concerned with the affairs of a country thousands of miles away. And finally, if there's anyone at the DOJ who's not corrupt, isn't secretly involved in a DNM, or isn't too politically timid to deal with a hot potato, drop me a note. My email is zybose@safe-mail.net. I'd like to surrender again. I don't see myself turning myself into any second-tier nation's authorities. It wouldn't likely take much cash spread around to end my life in a hurry. But I'm hoping we can work out a method for me to come in and defend myself against any indictment that may be hanging over my head. Let's see if the DOJ can manage to accept my surrender and not get me killed by one of their rogues in the process. There we go. And yeah, that was terribly exciting. Let me see if he put anything else in here. Just so you don't want to. Let's see. This is by Mustache. Just so you don't spend too much time scratching your head. CWT stands for Christopher W. Tarbell. The response by plural of Mongoose is, I don't buy that. Tarbell was gone by the time the interesting stuff was going on. Let's see here. And G. Wilder says that's exactly what he wanted you to believe. That CWT stuff is pretty damning if you ask me. Plus, if anyone had the tools at their disposal, it would be him. Yeah, that's terribly interesting. So we're actually on page 9 of 116 out of this. And I'm just going to bump it ahead one to see if he did any more responses here. Let's see here. There we go. And Mustache wrote, just so you don't, CWT, Christopher Tarbell. Tarbell is another one of them, quote, wicked smart type folks, and I really can't see it being him. No, my theory is that someone that is currently still highly placed within the FBI. I think the CWT thing was the tagline of another persona, one active in an ongoing FBI project. And I think that Mr. Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Ciaran Turner, or someone who has a big-ass office that looks a lot like this, has got a big stack of files for an operation somewhere that are signed off, CWT. And I think right now, files are being shredded and hard drives are being wiped. And finally, I think they'll miss something important. Somewhere. They always do. And eventually, the whole sordid story is going to come out. Yeah, but not likely before you're dead, dude. Sorry. Let's see here. It seems like there's a whole bunch more to this. But, yeah, dude. This is terribly interesting stuff. You know, I think that the problem is that there are already a lot of government entities involved in this shit. And as far as, you know, what we've seen from law enforcement entities is that they immediately get corrupted by this shit. You know, it's like, oh my god, I can get into this and do it in such a way that nobody knows I've got the money? Fuck yeah, I want in. And that's the problem. That was the problem to begin with Bitcoin. Is that everybody likes money that nobody else knows that they have. And I don't care who we're talking about. You know, the cops, you, me, the governor, you know, the assistant district attorney. We all like having non-disclosed income or assets. You know, because you never know when you might need something like that. But, it makes the idea of trying to regulate these markets that much sillier, because at this point it's really, really obvious that all we're really talking about here is competition control. When it comes to drawing up regulations and whatnot. It's like, okay, you're just stopping me from doing business before I can do business because I can't afford this bullshit license that you're trying to impose on me. But, it's this case kind of exemplifies those barriers will be shown to be how clear and bullshit they really are as the darknet markets continue to increase. It's one of the symptoms that these people really don't enunciate too much. They don't like make the association that darknet markets exist because existing in a clear web market has become too regulated and too taxed. And people just simply aren't interested in keeping your bullshit federal or state programs running with their paychecks, especially because they're not actually receiving any benefit from it, direct or implied. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music now that we managed to finish that bad boy up. And as far as where to go, I think this one's appropriate. Soundgarden. Rusty Cage, here on CoinMetal. And that was Anthrax with One Man Stands. A little older Anthrax there, but I gotta tell you, Persistence of Time, one of the best albums of all time. I don't know what happened to them that after that they got all kind of diverted and shit, but the Bush era, it was fruitful. There was certainly some good music deployed during that time, but certainly not my favorite. It's just me. I know that there are people on both sides of the camp. I do like some of the stuff that Anthrax did with John Bush, but I felt like the departure was too much too soon. Like the Sound of White Noise. In many ways, that album was a big departure from what they had been doing before. But it seemed like that was kind of the way of the time, There was breakups during that time. There was band rearrangements, new people coming in to bands and striving their ways in their new bands, such as Jason Newsted and Metallica. And I think Anthrax had some breakup before Joey finally decided to hang up the hat or was kicked out, or I've never been sure about what that story was. It really depends on who you were asking, I guess. But in any case, Joey is back, and I think he's a better fit for Anthrax. And I don't know, I really have to review a lot more of the Bush material. I kind of, when Stomped 442 came out, I was just like, okay, whatever. I'm not really interested in this band anymore. And there was some other stuff that I'd heard, and I was just like, okay, this is like proto-Nickelback kind of stuff, and Anthrax is playing it. I'm feeling really injured here. And then they went back to a bit more of their harder roots. And I got to think there was like some sort of bandmate change in there somewhere that kind of precipitated the angular adjustment of the band, where they were going. But I really think that when they brought Joey back, they were going back the right way, and I think that is continuing now. But the last two albums that they put out have been really, really good. And I'm looking forward to anything they may be releasing in the near future. I haven't been really paying attention too much whether or not they're actually working on something, although I did hear murmurs to that effect not too long ago, maybe a year ago. So, I don't know. They could be still touring. I know they were touring last year a little bit, so that kind of gets in the way of that production time. So for all we know, it's in the can already, and it's just a matter of getting it all cobbled together and put an album cover on it and call it good. But we'll find out soon, I'm sure. Anyway, I've got some accompanying materials for what we've been covering tonight. And so, yeah, here it is. And this is from justice.gov. Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District of New York, for immediate release, Thursday, January 30th, 2020. Senior advisor to the operator of the Silk Road website pleads guilty in Manhattan federal court. Roger Thomas Clark was a key figure in the development of Silk Road, advised Ross Ulbricht on all aspects of the criminal enterprise, and urged and facilitated an attempted murder for hire. That's interesting. We didn't get any mention of that before. Jeffrey S. Berman, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, announced that Roger Thomas Clark, a.k.a. Plural of Mongoose, a.k.a. Variety Jones, a.k.a. VJ, a.k.a. Simone, pled guilty today to conspiring to distribute massive quantities of narcotics, a charge arising out of his role as the senior advisor to the owner and operator of the Silk Road Online illicit black market. During its operation from 2011 until 2013, Silk Road was used by thousands of drug dealers and other unlawful vendors to distribute illegal drugs and other illicit goods and services to more than 100,000 buyers and to launder hundreds of millions of dollars derived from those unlawful transactions. Clark pled guilty before the U.S. District Judge William H. Pauley III. Manhattan U.S. Attorney Jeffrey S. Berman said, quote, Silk Road was a secret online marketplace for illegal drugs, hacking services, and a whole host of other criminal activity. As he admitted today, Roger Thomas Clark was a central figure in helping lead Silk Road and in advocating violence to protect the site. Clark went so far as to urge and facilitate the attempted killing of a co-conspirator suspected of stealing from Silk Road. Clark's arrest, extradition from Thailand, and conviction should make it clear that the purported anonymity of the dark web is not a protective shield from prosecution. The guy turned himself in. Continuing on. According to the allegations in the superseding indictment, court filings, statements made in court, and evidence presented during the 2015 trial of Ross Ulbricht, Silk Road's founder. Ulbricht created Silk Road in approximately January 2011 and owned and operated the underground website until it was shut down by law enforcement authorities in October 2013. Silk Road emerged as the most sophisticated and extensive criminal marketplace on the internet at the time, serving as a sprawling black market bazaar where unlawful goods and services, including illegal drugs of virtually all varieties, were bought and sold regularly by the site's users. While in operation, Silk Road was used by thousands of drug dealers and other unlawful vendors to distribute hundreds of kilograms of illegal drugs and other unlawful goods and services to well over 100,000 buyers, and to launder hundreds of millions of dollars deriving from these unlawful transactions. Silk Road enabled its users to buy and sell drugs and other illegal goods and services anonymously and outside the reach of law enforcement. Silk Road was operated on what is known as the Onion Router or Tor network, a special network of computers on the internet distributed around the world designed to conceal the true IP addresses of the computers on the network and thereby the identities of the network's users. Silk Road also included a Bitcoin-based payment system that served to facilitate the illegal commerce conducted on the site, including by concealing the identities and locations of the users transmitting and receiving funds through the site. Clark, who went by the online names Variety Jones, VJ, Simone, plural of Mongoose, and Captain Sergeant, was described by Ulbricht as, quote, a real mentor who advised Ulbricht about, among other things, security vulnerabilities in the Silk Road site, technical infrastructure, the rules that govern Silk Road users and vendors, and the promotion of sales on Silk Road, including the sales of narcotics. Clark also provided advice to Ulbricht on developing, quote, a cover story to make it appear as though Ulbricht had sold Silk Road. Clark also assisted with hiring programmers to help improve the infrastructure of and maintain Silk Road. Clark was also responsible for gathering information on law enforcement's efforts to investigate Silk Road. And Clark advised Ulbricht on how to protect the Silk Road empire. For instance, when a Silk Road staff member was suspected of stealing 350,000 Bitcoin from the site, Clark suggested to Ulbricht that Ulbricht commission a murder for hire. Ulbricht took that suggestion. Ultimately, unbeknownst to both men, the attempted murder for hire did not result in any harm to the target. Clark was paid at least hundreds of thousands of dollars for his assistance in operating Silk Road. Clark, 56, a citizen of Canada, pled guilty to one count of conspiracy to distribute narcotics, which carries a minimum sentence of 20 years in prison, or a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. The maximum potential sentence in this case is prescribed by Congress and is provided here for informational purposes only, as any sentencing of the defendant will be determined by the judge. Clark is scheduled to be sentenced by Judge Pauley on May 29, 2020 at 11 a.m. Mr. Berman praised the outstanding joint efforts of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Homeland Security Investigations, Chicago O'Hare, the Drug Enforcement Administration's New York Field Division, the Internal Revenue Service's Criminal Investigations New York Field Office, and the New York City Police Department. Mr. Berman also thanked the HSI Attaché Bangkok, Thailand for its assistance and support. Yeah, whatever. So, I think that these people are giving themselves way too much credit for basically a guy that was under threat of physical harm and interested in preventing the harm of others. Personally, I think that he should have disavowed all contact with this asshole. You know, if he wanted to stay anonymous and whatnot, he could have, and he should have. Personally, I wouldn't have taken anything the guy that was telling me all that shit seriously. I don't care if he's supposedly enriching himself illicitly through the busting of darknet markets and stuff. I don't really care. You know, I might warn them. I might tell them, hey, you got some corrupt FBI agent who's in your shit already. You might want to try and fix that. He told me this. You know, he told me this was the way that he got into your shit. You might want to take care of it. And basically that would have been it as far as I'm concerned. You know, that if he was really smart, he would have just kept where he was. You know, or shifted to a location that didn't have any jurisdiction issues with the United States. You know, they couldn't be seizing on him and sending him about, extraditing him. And there are places like that. You know, he could have disappeared in the countryside of Vietnam, and nobody would have been the wiser. And he's a low enough priority target that nobody probably would have even messed with him. You know, I think that if he made it all the way to Thailand, that it was well within his capability to continue running. It's just he probably didn't have any desire to keep running. Oh well. But yeah, as far as how this thing is going to shake him out, or shake out with him and whatnot, I think in the long term he'll probably get out on good behavior, and assuming he's not killed in prison, because him rolling on that one dude, the FBI agent, and trying to reveal the fact that he exists and that he's doing illegal shit out of his office. I don't know. It could be just as likely that they're ignoring it because they consider it part of their official purview to commit crimes and violate the law as they see fit in the prosecution of competition for their own drug dealers. I told a friend this, and I'm constantly reminded of it when I see something like this. And it's basically this, that if something is made illegal, the government will act in that illegal interest's benefit. And it's like this, that you can't sin if there's no sin available, right? So they make the sin available and then they bust you for it. And of course they don't indicate that they were on the receiving end of your money and the sending end of the drugs that they sent you. And they're actually, I don't think they're actually required to indicate the fact that they facilitated the criminal enterprise that they busted you for participating in. But it really does seem to be that's the thing, if enough people were to give up on growing pot, if enough people like tomorrow said, we're no longer going to grow pot, all the gangs out there that said, we're not going to participate in the pot market anymore, the cops would be growing the pot. If they're not already growing the pot, there would be like clandestine federal organizations or even state government organizations that are dedicated to doing one thing: growing pot to keep the pot market alive on the street, the black market alive on the street. And there's a reason for it. And it's the DEA needs to justify its existence. If there's no cocaine around for you to buy and for them to bust you for buying or selling, then they can't justify their existence. So they need to import massive amounts of cocaine, massive amounts of heroin, grow shit tons of pot, make all kinds of meth, and distribute that shit on the street. Otherwise, they can't justify their federal budget. They're a line item on some federal department or another, and they need to account for their existence. They need to justify their existence. In this fucking Silk Road case is evidence of the fact that none of it would have been able to happen without the participation of the federal government individuals that were involved in the investigation of the case, or at least it wouldn't have been as successful. They had two DEA agents working directly in their top office at the Silk Road. And then there's this shit like this FBI agent who knows everything about the Silk Road, and is leaking all of the illegal shit that they're doing in the pursuance of that case to another hacker and just bragging about it. It's fucking ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. If you take all the tags off of everything, you basically got a high-ranking Federal Bureau of Investigation officer or executive officer or some shit like that who's doing shakedowns online. He's acting as some sort of fucking enforcer out there, and he talks to the administrators for these dark web markets and says, "Hey man, give me a cut, or I'm gonna fucking report you and hasten the investigation and bust all of you." And so they have no choice but to do an exit scam on their customers and take their money because they're being extorted into it by the DEA or the FBI or whatever. or this agent thereof. And it's not like they can go to the DEA or the FBI and say, hey, you guys have got a rogue agent who's trying to extort us for our customer funds, because they're doing illegal shit to get those funds. I mean, it's really, really sad. But I think that if people were doing their due diligence with regard to cryptocurrencies, and that if there were enough entities out there that were doing like chain analysis on the Bitcoin blockchain and other cryptocurrencies, that we'd be fully capable of finding out exactly where they're contacting or coming from federal departments. You know, whether the Silk Road is in fact hosted on a government server or some shit like that. Which, again, like I said, if they have a law on the books, they need to justify that law's existence. They need to be putting busts on their docket as credit to the existence of this law. You know, it's like, this is the enforcement of the law. These are the results. We're taking these criminals off the street. We're busting corrupt and greedy people who aren't willing to play by the rules. You know, they need to justify that. And if they don't have enough money from you know, they don't have enough evidence that the way that they're executing their mandate is turning a profit, well, you know, they kind of get deleted off of that budget that pays for the lights to be on in their offices. But yeah, I think this is the kind of thing that is going to go away. And it's not going to go away because nobody has any desire to engage in it. It's going to go away because due to the lack of ability to faithfully enforce the mandate, they're simply going to delete it. And it's not going to stop state governments from trying to get in on the boodle, but it will take the federal governments out of it. And then we'll go back to competition between jurisdictions. You know, it's like if one jurisdiction is providing a tax-free environment for commerce to take place with cryptocurrencies within it, they will do just fine. Either through inaction or specific action to decriminalize all such things, that they will receive the attention of those that are wanting to operate in those kind of businesses, and the commerce will happen within that state's borders. And that state or country even will benefit from the commerce having taken place there, because their citizens that were facilitating the commerce will get richer from the fact that they facilitated commerce for other people as a service. And then they will have more money that they can spend in their local and broader economy. And again, through regulation of business and through whatever taxation is on sales and whatnot, the state itself will benefit. Even if it's just people paying for fucking business licenses to start up new businesses because there was actually demand there, but previously nobody had enough money to start some shit going. And this is the lesson we are going to learn over the next probably 10 to 20 years. That all this regulation, while it's nice and fun for the 0.0001% of us that can actually win their way around it and you know, own several lawyers or several offices of lawyers that can wend around all of it for them at a profit, of course, because paying those costs isn't worth it if you're still having to pay enough taxes to offset the benefit of having those lawyers. But yeah, you know, that shit's all going to continue as long as we're considering the activities that people are engaging in commerce as something that is a necessity for the state to tax. And again, I think that the fact is that their inability to prosecute their mandates is necessary, or would be necessary for us to take them seriously, is going to basically turn into one of those things where it's like, we have to get rid of it because it's costing us more in face than it's making us in dollars to continue this bullshit. And it's actually costing us more in the inhibition of the development of our economy, despite the fact that we're having a growing base of taxes or necessity for taxes. And yet we're killing the businesses that would be paying those taxes and keeping the whole thing going. That's going to be demonstrated to be a vast inefficiency. And it's going to be eliminated like any other inefficiency in a manufacturing line. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into music for just a brief moment. Then we're going to close this bad boy out. And as far as where to go, I've been dying to play something off of Houdini here by Melvins. And so, I don't play it enough to know it very, very well. But I'm just going to pick a song and just roll with it. Joan of Arc by Melvins. Here on CoinMetal. And that was Ministry with Theives. And with that, I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Certainly do appreciate the support. Unfortunately, we will not be back on Wednesday, but we will be back next Friday. I have a small glitch in my schedule. Got to take care of it. Maybe back Wednesday. Severely doubt it. Have kind of something in the way of my schedule there that I must attend to. But we will be back again at least one more time this week. Like I said, if I can, I will log in, albeit late, on Wednesday. But until then, let's go ahead and select our last dance for the evening. And as far as that goes, we haven't played any Nothing Face tonight. Let's fix that. And so, what song? Here we go. Can't Wait for the Violence. Last Dance, here on CoinMetal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. Good night. Oh, wait. I forgot. Until Friday. Trade safe, do your homework, and watch out for your own bunghole. Because nobody else knows. Well, nobody else will do it for you. Sorry. Yeah, so here we go. Can't Wait for Violence. Last Dance here on CoinMetal. Thank you again for listening. Y'all have an excellent evening. Good night.